I'm Carol Barker, the co-founder and Community Resource Director for Adoptive Families Coalition, and we work in collaboration with the Family Involvement Center on a number of projects, particularly related to adoptive families. For the past 2 years, I have been attending trauma training in my local area to try to find the most effective and practical information I can for adoptive parents, particularly adoptive parents that have children with big behaviors possibly from their trauma impacted child. My search led me to Arizona Trauma Institute, and I was so grateful to discover the revolutionary forward-facing trauma therapy originated by Dr. Eric Gentry. Dr. Gentry is a board-certified and internationally recognized leader in the study and treatment of traumatic stress and compassion fatigue, something all our parents know about to a great degree. And we are very privileged today that Dr. Gentry, or Eric, is able to be with us today and to share his information with us, particularly related to adoptive families. So we are grateful and welcome Dr. Eric Gentry.
Bless you, each of you, for being here. The thing that qualifies me the most to be here in front of you guys is surviving 35 years of clinical practice. I've done this work for a long, long time, and as Carol said, I, for the past 20 years, have been researching and building products around helping professionals do caregiving work without suffering, compassion fatigue, prevention and resilience, professional resilience, and have just done that with kind of a whole wide spectrum of professional caregivers, from physicians to animal care professionals and mental health professionals and correctional and law enforcement, just kind of clear across the spectrum, and have found some principles and practices that are really simple. They're not easy, but they're really simple to understand and simple to employ, and we're going to talk through some of those this morning. But to start, what I'd like to do is, every one of you, one of my favorite writers is an ex-Navy SEAL, and he's a Rhodes Scholar. And he is now the governor of Missouri. His name's Eric Greitens, and he wrote a beautiful book about resilience, one of the best things I've ever read on resiliency. And one of the quotes from that book that I just love, he says, is the reason why you are suffering is because you don't know what you're doing here. And he really kind of catalyzes resilience as mission, that when people have mission, they are able to walk through hardship because they have something greater than them that allows them to push through hardship and stay in a state of hardiness. When people lose their mission, they become much more susceptible to the symptoms of the work. So clearly, you guys all in this room are mission driven. I heard it, and I can see it in your faces. And you have continued to stay mission-driven because you have gotten some things from doing that mission. There have been some blessings. I get it. There's been some really hard times and some difficult times, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. But I want to hear from you, what has made this your work as a giver of care to children, as an adoptive parent? What has made that rich, valuable, precious, soul satisfying for you?
Starting with me.
You look like you want to talk.
Well, that's funny that you talk about the mission, because I actually wrote down that God sent me in this direction. I believe I had to come to a realization that this is my mission and my purpose. I struggled with it throughout the many years that I was doing foster care, because I was like, no. I have 3 older children. I have 5 grandkids. So I was not expecting to have a 16 or 15, a set of twins and other kids coming, in and out of my home. But I was sitting at church one day, and the pastor was talking about your God-given purpose. And he used an example: if you're not the choir director and you're the usher, don't direct the choir. So I took that to heart and realized that this is something that that God put on my heart. I had a family. My family was my mother. I grew up mainly with my mother, but I had uncles and aunts, and we were very close and united. So as I got older, I'm like, seeing all these children, and I always say it's never the kids' fault, even though the kids are the ones that, have to take the punishment or have to run the course, but it's never their fault. So anything that I can do that I can give back to them, I'll do it. Tired and all, I'll do it. That's pretty much it.
Thank you for sharing that. What do you get from being an adoptive parent that's valuable? Some personal experiences.
Joy. You get a lot of joy and laughter in your home. Steve and I were cruising into being empty nesters. Our kids are now 23, 25, and 27. So our son, we just put our last one into college, and I had come alongside of a young lady at the Phoenix Dream Center who came in as a crisis pregnancy, and she had 6 other children in foster care. And so came alongside of her, and she had her 7th baby and called us and said, is there any way you could take him home until I can get him back? And I called Steve on the golf course and said, hey, honey, so we're going to get a baby tonight. Just so you know, it's going to be very short term, no big deal. Like, we're going to help this mama get her baby, reunified. And 2 years later, walking through that, we went through and we gave that child back to one of the biological fathers. And so, but the time that we had in our home with him, he taught us to love in ways that we grew differently than just our biological children, and just continue to love him. And even though he's, not with us now, he's with his biological father, but we continue to pray for him. We continue to lift up all those siblings, and just put the joy and the laughter and the growth within our family to love outside of just our biological group. It has taught us so much. So we're grateful for that.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, for me, I get the opportunity to learn. I say to my children that I adopted, because my youngest son will be 21, my bio, and I said, you guys saved me, because there's no telling where I would be at had I not had this opportunity to continue to, spread the love, to share my life. None of my 3 children are at home, and my son's away in college, and he's a senior this year in college. So for the last 3.5 years, I would have had an empty nest, and there's no telling where I would have ended up, So the fact that they show me how to love, because they get up every day, even with the opportunities that were against them, that the world had against them, knowing the fact that they get up every single day to still live and thrive and survive is like a teaching moment for me every single day.
That's good.
I would say being a parent of adoptive kids as well as being a parent of biological kids is that it's those little moments. It's the little sticky kisses and hugs and the notes and the little jives and the mommy I love you. And for those of us who have trauma with adopted kids, sometimes you forget. So I think that's good, Eric, that you mentioned that, because there is a lot of joy in adopting. For us, we wanted to adopt because my husband's side of the family, it's been over 100 years since there's been a girl. And I'll always remember on our wedding day, my brother-in-law came up to me and said, you won't have any girls. And I was like, oh, yeah, we're fine. So we had the first baby, and it was a boy. And the second baby, and I bought a pink diaper bag. I had to give away the pink diaper bag because that was a boy, and after that we were like, oh, forget. And then we looked around, and we actually chose international adoption because maybe we could have children, and we didn't want to take a baby away domestically. And so we chose international adoption. And like you, we actually long felt that there were other babies that were meant to be in our family all along, and they just happened to be in different countries. And so we ended up adopting one from Korea and one from China.
Nice.
What I can say is that I wanted to be a mom since I was a little girl. And after trying for 10, 11 years, I realized there were so many kids in need of love. And we started with foster parenting. We fostered 2 children, and I provided a lot of respect for friends until this little guy came into our lives. He had any medical issues, but I think I was certain that I could do it for him, not for me. Because I kind of put that away. I said, no, I need to see it in a different way. Not that I want to be a mother, but there is a child in need of love, in need of support. So when I put that aside, everything came easy. Everything was like so smooth, and I go like, I'm doing it for him. And when you see that results and that it's working so well and that he's doing so good and medical issues are taken care of and behaviors are going to be there, but we're working on those. And just the joy of receiving that word, I love you, Mom, or thank you for being my mom, that's like, okay, that gives me more energy and keep us going. That's it. We would like to go back to foster parenting. And that was interesting that you mentioned what is the problem out there. The problem is on us, because I'm struggling if I want to adopt a child that is his age. When I see him doing so good, already kind of going through the major things, doing so well, I think, what would happen if I bring another child his age that have major issues? So I need to find that answer, and I think I need just a little bit of time.
I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
I think some of the joy for me has just been being able to use the resources and the knowledge that God has given us the first time around to be able to help kids the second time around. Because like Terry said, we're doing this all over again. One of the boys, we had a 16-year-old African-American boy that was with us for a while that nobody else wanted because he was a 16-year-old African-American boy. And he brought so much joy to us. And just, even though he's gone back to his dad, or his mom, I'm sorry, he texts us every day, and he wants to know how to go to college. He wants to know how to get a driver's license. He wants to know all of those things that we just take for granted should be simple, and his mom's not able to provide that for him. And so it's cool that he'll just text every morning, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And he wants something, but that's his first thing. Is, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And it's really. It's fulfilling to be able to meet those needs for him.
Don't want to coerce anybody to speak, but if anybody wants to have a voice about what is satisfying about your work as an adoptive parent, this is your chance to do it.
I've just grown. I'm such a bigger person now than I was before, and my children. And I think without them, I would have had a myopic, domesticated life where I was just doing my little thing. But it's become my passion. It's more than my calling. It's my passion in life, and it just, once you see something, you can't ever close your eyes again. I always tell people when they're like, "Why did you keep adopting? Why do you have so many kids?" My story started out so sad, and I couldn't have my own children. I kept losing my own children, and so I always tell people, I adopted first because I needed a child. My heart was broken, and after that, it's because the child needed me, and I kept adopting because this child, nobody's taking this child but this child. And so, they all came into my life, and the challenges I've had to face, and really not understanding the traumas that when they came into my life, and having to adapt and grow. and just becoming passionate about understanding and learning and advocating for all orphans and adopted children. Went out and got a bachelor's in sociology and worked a master's in psychology just to try to understand how to help my own children and help other people help their own children. So it's rewarding for that to just be the best I can for them and to be an advocate and to help all the children I can.
Anybody else? Going once? Twice? Sold. Well, I'm privileged to be among you folks who clearly the passion for this work is palatable. You know, I can feel it. I'm sitting amongst it. It's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to be here. Any of you are familiar with the ACE? You know the ACE, Aversive Childhood Experiences Scale? It's really how many of you have heard the phrase trauma-informed care? It's really been what's driven that. It's looking at 10 different kind of things that happen to children in early development. And the higher that score, usually the worse off they are in lives, physical health and emotional well-being both. And I have an ACE score of 9 out of 10. And so to hear people who are dedicated to giving care to children, it just makes my heart kind of go sing. It feels really, really privileged to be among you. Now I want to transition. Is adoptive parenting stressful?
Up to you.
It is? I would expect that it probably is. Would I be right in that assumption?
Yes.
Well, can I ask somebody to describe this next little piece that we're doing, to just write down the material that we're about to process? Would you be willing to do that?
You bet.
Would you make a column down the center of the page? And on one side, on the left-hand side, put cause, and on the right-hand side, put effect. And I'd like to elicit from you first. I want to go with the effects first. What are the negative effects that you find either that are intermittent or kind of pervasive that you can attribute to your work as an adoptive parent, that the negative effects of stress in your life, that the way that this work has negatively affected you? We talked about positive. There's a lot of positives to it, but I expect that there has also been some costs to that. And I'm wondering if you guys can share some of the negative effects of stress, and not just from adoptive parenting, the negative effects of stress in your life across the board.
I think it's given me a bit of a negative outlook towards people, and especially parents that don't treat their kids the way those kids deserve to be treated. It's hard to separate the feelings. It's really easy for me to get angry at people just because of the way they've treated their children.
Thank you.
I have a negative against the system.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's probably good judgment.
That's probably my, biggest. We have a motto and a mission, and I just don't feel like the work that's being done fits the motto and the mission. We put a lot of time into figuring out the problems. We put a lot of money into figuring out the problems, and yet still the problems still exist very widely. That's my biggest struggle, pulling teeth from a newborn.
Some more effects.
Personally, I'm more introverted socially.
Say it again, please.
I'm more introverted socially, dealing with what I deal with on a daily basis with my kids, and yet wanting to protect their privacy. You can't tell your girlfriends or your friends what you're dealing with, and then so you just kind of bottle it up, which is the stress, you know.
Yeah, that's really good. Like finding a positive outlet for you to share. We were at a hotel this weekend, and I spent some time at the pool by myself. And at one point, I found myself kind of just people watching. And in my mind, I thought they have no idea. Like I bet 95% of these people at the Scottsdale Fairmont have no idea, that we have 18,000 kids in foster care. And I was thinking to myself, I love to meet new people, but I'm like, even the conversation, like what kind of conversation would I strike up with these people, or we have a very ethnic child that we are in the process of adopting, and the comments that come to us when we're in public, where's she from? And we're like, Phoenix, and they're like, no, really, where's she from? And I'm like, she's from Phoenix, she's, Hispanic, Japanese, and Cherokee Indian, but it's those conversations, and so you feel like you want to explain, but then you kind of pull back and you're like, they're not going to get it. And it's not like passing judgment, it's just how far and how deep do you want to go. And when you come in here and there's all Kleenex, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's finding a healthy outlet, and sometimes it has to be outside of your husband or your spouse, because he may have a really good day and I'm going to have a really bad day, and then the next day we're going to swap. So it's just, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, how do you find that? How do you process all those feelings, the negativity towards the system, the negativity towards the biological parents, or maybe even the grief or the guilt that you feel because you're not able to meet that child's full needs. You can't just walk down to someone next to the pool and say, so, hey, we're going to go next.
Or your friends come at it through traditional parenting. Well, ground them, we'll spank them.
Yeah.
You understand. It's not
And they're fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject here for just a second and kind of carve it out as a placeholder so that we come back to this before we finish. But one of the things that is an essential component of resilience is that you have to have a support network. You have to, and you can't just use a network of convenience. You really have to build and train your support network how to be supportive, so that you can call them up and meet with them and do 20 or 30 minutes of sharing where you're not being interrupted and it's not conversational, where you're just sharing the difficulties of that, and then you can reciprocate that back and forth, so you're continuing to offload some of the pain and difficulty of the work, and so that it's not carried with you and you're just stacking up coal cars full of pain behind you. That's one of the ways that's resilience. And what was really interesting is that that's been researched with docs, and it's more powerful that perceived social support is the most potent stress reliever that there is for physicians. And I work with a large group practice of physicians. I've been consulting with them for the past 9 years. And what we had to do is physicians don't know how to talk to each other. They only know how to talk medically and fix things. We had to hire professional actors and do a video to teach them how to be able to talk back and forth with each other in an active listening way, instead of jumping in and fixing what was going on. It was no wonder that there's not very much. That's exactly what you see, is the more symptomatic somebody gets, the more isolatory and introverted that they become. And I really appreciate you guys sharing that. What else are some of the negative aspects of stress for you?
Well, mine's a little along that line, that I have found I have a hard time often even being comfortable at church. And you would think that might be a place, but I've mentored sexually abused girls for over 30 years. And sadly, so many of them were abused by people in the church, including fathers that were deacons in their churches or pastors and things like that. And, it's, you have a hard time, like you said, staying in light conversation. And then I do adolescents mostly, and my focus is on adolescents in foster care. the girls I were in the last one I worked with, like her father, you know, she was taken from her family at 12. She was in a guardianship, and at 15, her dad was murdered in Folsom Prison, very gruesomely. And she really, you know, was just kind of non-functional, obviously, for 3 to 6 months. And when she started trying to work her way back into her youth group at her church, it was like re-traumatizing, because she's sitting there and they know her dad's been murdered, and they're, well, you know, what kind of 15, 16-year-old kids, it's hard on them too, trying to comfort her, but then she has their prayer request her about, well, my dad took my cell phone. And it was, you know, and I've been grounded from it for the weekend, and I'm just going crazy because I can't talk to her, text my friends, and so it's hard to help them process, you know, and I struggle with that, and then I struggle with wanting to, I have girls that are now in their 40s, and they go, God and I are good, but I can't go to church. And I have real struggles with that for me, so, you know, it even carries on into there. Where do I balance that, and where do I go with that? So,
It's really glad you're here. Yeah. That you're, what you just described as secondary traumatic stress. That it is the contamination, the intrusion of your painful past learning into the perceptual system of the present. From all of that trauma that you've experienced, it is contaminating that experience that is something that's joyful and has been restorative for you, is now contaminated by secondary traumatic stress. The cool thing is that it can be cleaned back out. Yeah, for sure. I have a physician, and she says it this way. You know, not every pregnancy, and she's an emergency room physician in San Francisco. She says not every pregnancy ends up with complication and bleeding. Everyone I see does. Not every bicycle ride ends up with a closed head injury. Everyone I see does. Not every home improvement project ends up with a missing digit. Everyone I see does. You know, what's that done? What's her work has done to the way she perceives the world? It's made her world a whole lot more dangerous place, simply by going to work and working 12-hour shifts in an ER. Has made the world, as she leaves the hospital, much more dangerous, perceivedly a much more dangerous place. And that was just a really beautiful description of the way that's happened. Thank you for sharing that.
That's a really good point that you just made, because as we're kind of all in this, and as we're coming into the city, or we're going into the different areas of our life, we definitely see things differently. We see a wider scale than what, you know, I was saying maybe 95% of the people at the pool that I was with maybe don't see. Like, and it does make it hard. You do want to isolate, because you just feel like no one's going to understand it. So I think the effect for us would be that stress, the knowing. Don't you?
Yeah, just making sure that it doesn't overtake everything in
Right.
your life, you know, because it's really easy to just be so consumed with all the nonsense that we see on a day-to-day basis that's all that you do, rather than finding time to have fun, to just be light, to have those light conversations with people. It's okay to do that, you know, because you need those outlets just to relax and not talk about all the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis.
Not for nothing, but this might be a really good group of people that you could use as support.
Yeah.
Just saying that maybe this might be a really good resource for you to actualize. Maybe. So that's a nice sampling of the effects. I don't want to belabor it too far, but there's a lot of them, right? You've got sleep issues. You've got eating issues sometimes. You've got irritability issues sometimes. I'm guessing that all of those kind of traditional stressful pieces are part of the mix, and that you have found. Some of you temporarily, some of you in a more chronic way, the quality of life diminished as a result of the stress that is resultant from your work or your mission. My guess would be that at times. So let's talk about what causes it. What are the stressful parts of being an adoptive parent? What makes it stressful?
For the children who have big behaviors, acting out, that can be a huge cause for stress in the entire family and desperation in the parents, in the heart of the parents. A lot of pain, a lot of disappointment. So acting out. No fault necessarily of the child.
Any of y'all know Holiday Park School? It's over on in the West Valley. They're a trauma-informed grade school, and I've been working with that school for the past year and helping them to enhance resilience. And the principal, she calls them her bad kids. Bodies acting differently.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Yes. That's just a gorgeous reframe. Yeah, it's sweet. Pretty sweet. So these are my bad kids. She's done an amazing job of keeping teacher retention and helping kids to have a safe place and a felt sense of a safe place. It's really sweet. What else are causes of stress?
To pile on what Carol was saying, the stress is not knowing when those behaviors are going to happen.
Not knowing what?
Not knowing when those behaviors are going to happen and just living in that stress. Like, is this going to do it?
Kind of an anticipatory
Yes.
thing?
And then, of course, when you're in it, it's stressful. And for me, I have a hard time afterwards. My child always comes and says, I'm so sorry. And I just feel very flat, like it's going to happen again tomorrow. To be able to accept that and to move on. So it's all the whole thing is stressful.
I agree with you. You get trained, almost like that Pavlov's dog experiment, where your senses almost get trained to anticipate danger. And when things are going well, you're not really calm. You're still anticipating what's going to come. And I don't know if it got as far as PTSD or not, but I remember a point in time when we actually still had a landline, we don't now, but when the phone would ring and my nerves would jump because it wasn't a normal call to me. It was, who's going to call and what is this going to be like? And because so many times it was. And that kind of stress not only impacts the parents, it impacts every single person in that family, including the other kids.
It is not PTSD, but it is PTS.
P would. Okay, what does that mean?
It's not, it doesn't have the D, which is post-traumatic stress disorder,
Okay, so.
but it's post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
And that's where we're headed. It's interesting that you said it that way. It is indeed post-traumatic stress. That's what you're describing. Other causes.
One of the causes for me as a man is not being able to fix it. And so, I didn't deal with those things with my biological kids, but now I'm dealing with the kids that are in my home, and I immediately want to fix it and logically talk them through it, and it doesn't work. And so that's...
Well, and we talk about that even with the system. Like, logically, we have an answer. We could fix it. We're like, this is what you need to do for this child, and this will help. But then you have other decision makers, and so it's that loss of control. You love this child. This child's in your home. You're willing to do whatever this child needs you to do, but you're ultimately not the decision makers, and you have to hand that over. So we say you've got to throw logic out the window, kind of, when it comes to what we think and let them just make the decisions, and you just keep loving them while you have them in your home, planting the seeds while you have them in your home, and ultimately they'll make the decision. And Does that make sense?
It's beautiful. You just described everything that I'm going to be doing, and I don't know that we need to continue any further. Thank you very much.
Because I'm a mess.
But you articulated it beautifully, that it is that ability to turn away from the stuff out there that's beyond your control and come back to where you have traction and agency yourself and your mission, and to be able to do the best you can do, even while stuff out there is not going the way that you want it to do. What I want to do is to follow through in the rest of our time and show you how to do that without it being a brute force thing, so that you're not generating symptoms from it, you're not fighting your way through that. Instead, you are able to do that and regulate an autonomic nervous system where you are comfortable and not suffering to be able to give good care. That's where we're headed. So let's do that. Let's transition. Would you read to me what we came up with as the causes?
Behavior, big behaviors impacting the family, and then anticipating stress even in calm times, not being able to fix the problem, and then just realizing that you had to leave the rest and do what you could. That's what I got right.
Excellent, thank you. And just that's kind of more your work mission focused. How about life? Let's just throw some life stressors in there too, so that we can shake all of that up. What's finances?
Health.
Health.
It does.
It affects your health.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Yeah, time.
What's that? Time demands. Time constraints.
Relationships.
Cultural shift.
Cultural shift, is that what you said?
Yes, away from the more disciplined or don't touch, no spanking, those kind.
I'm single. I'm a widow, actually 19 years. So doing this by myself sometimes is like, what in the world am I doing? Seriously, because, I'm constantly calling my family, and I have to go outside because I'm a yeller. And I don't want the kids to hear me yelling all the time. So I literally, and I do have a landline still. But I get on my cell phone and I walk around the block, which is probably about a quarter of a mile. And actually by the time I make maybe like that second, I'm calm because it really is. But just not having that in-home support system is really difficult too.
Thank you.
It can also bring stress on the in-home support system too, though.
Mm-hmm.
It adds that relationally in your marriage.
So what I just did with you guys is what I do with every single one of my clients, whether those clients are psychotherapy clients, whether those are other professionals that I'm working with to help them to heal their compassion fatigue, or whether it's a corporation that I'm doing or an agency I'm doing consultation with. I do that same process. I ask them, is your job life stressful? I always get a yes. And then I collect data. What are the effects? How's that impacting you negatively? And then what are the causes? And then I say this, and this is where things get different. Those causes are not the cause. Those things that you guys identified as the cause of your stress are not the cause of your stress. And as long as you believe that they are the cause, you will continue to have those negative effects. Matter of fact, one of the primary reasons why you have the negative effects is because you mistakenly believe what you believe to be the cause is the cause. And how do you suppose that my clients respond when I say that? Here's the look I get. It's kind of a sneering incredulousness that I hear and see from my clients. But what it does is it sets up a tension, a place to go. And what I end up doing from here is a short, and I'm going to take 10 or 15 minutes to do that, and then we'll have a break. of explaining about autonomic nervous system functioning is to explain to folks that it is not what's out there. It's what's going on inside of your body while you're encountering those things out there is the cause of stress. Does that make sense to you? It's not external. It is what is happening inside of my body. And when people who are so stressed out, they've lost so much of their brain functioning, they have it scripted in themselves that the only way I can have quality of life is if all this stuff out here lines up the way that I need it to line up. And what happens is they become increasingly a victim of their context and circumstances. And what my job is to teach them when they manage what is within their purview of control, i.e. their physiology, then whatever's happening out there does not have to produce symptoms. That you can be comfortable inside of your skin, that you can still have maximal brain functioning, maximal frontal lobe functioning, and then the kicker and the thing that is the most exciting is that you can stay true and maintain fidelity to your principles. And you don't have to end up getting judgmental with other people. That you don't find yourself violating your own principles because of how jacked up you are. And that's a really beautiful thing to start to give to folks is to help them to be able to walk through their personal and professional day and staying on the beam of their integrity, of their principles all the way through, so that when they go to bed that night and lay their head down and look back over their day, they're able to go, I didn't breach my integrity one time today. I just don't know how you live a better life than that. I'm pretty sure that is the top of Maslow's pyramid. I'm pretty sure that's self-actualization, and I'd like to show you guys how to do a little bit of that. And it starts with this. I've been doing this for 20 years, and what I found was that I couldn't just start talking about the autonomic nervous system, going, hippocampus, amygdala, HPA axis. People would go, that I started becoming Charlie Brown's teacher pretty quick, and I just lost them. So I had to come up with some gambits, some ways to engage and kind of make it playful and interactive to start to impart some of this information. And I always start with this question. How many of you sitting around this table right now are perfectly and totally 100% safe?
Are you saying physically?
I'm saying that if you got to clarify it, you ain't.
Okay.
So no.
And so I didn't see any hands. And when I don't see hands in a room, or I don't have acknowledgement from a client that I'm saying, are you 100% safe right now? Almost all of my clients go, no way. And what I've learned from them is that there is a brain structure called the anterior cingulate that is likely diminished in its functioning. And the important part about that little brain structure is when it's working well in folks that are not stressed, what it allows them to do is to do the perception of threat, perception of danger through their senses, through the empirical world, through what they see, smell, touch, taste, and hear. When that brain structure begins to get diminished, and that's what happens when people get stressed out, is it diminishes in volume and it diminishes in electrical activity. What it then does is it changes the way that we do threat assessment, threat perception, out of what's empirical in the environment, and it becomes more and more and more based upon our learning history. We are seeing threat based upon our learning history. And let me show you how that works. I'm going to ask you to take the next 10 seconds to do what Fritz Perls, who was the founder of Gestalt, said, lose your mind, come to your senses. I'm going to ask you to spend 10 seconds of disconnecting from your learning history and just notice what you notice in this room, empirically, with what you see, smell, touch, taste, and hear. Just sensorially, what's in this room. And while you're looking around this room, would you please point to me something in this room that is dangerous? What's dangerous in this room? Huh?
Electricity?
And where would you point to where it's dangerous? Up there? That, I don't see what you're pointing at.
The electric stuff there?
That thing up there? And how is that endangering any of us right now?
Right now, no. It's
Say again?
potential.
Yes, it is potential. How about right now? No. Right now, that thing is inert, is it not? It's not. I mean, if it falls on my head, then it will be dangerous to me. Is it falling right now? If it spits out sparks and fire, then, you know, it may burn me or kill me. But is it spitting out sparks right now? As you use your senses, that thing up there is completely inert, is it not? And it is producing no encroaching danger for any of us in this room. So you're going
Can I ask a question? So when you asked the question, do we feel safe?
I didn't ask you. Wait, hold on.
Okay,
I did not use the word feel.
okay,
You heard feel.
okay.
What did I say? Are you safe? I didn't ask if you felt safe. I asked if you are safe.
Okay.
And that's, most people don't ever separate those two things until somebody does it explicitly with them. That most people believe when they're scared they're in danger. And to see that those are two different things is where we start with resilience. That's where this all begins, is to be able to understand that just because that you are afraid does not mean you're in danger. So I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're fine, thank you. So are you safe? Because I was thinking, and maybe I shouldn't have been thinking this, but maybe I was afraid to say, yes, I'm safe, because you were going to say, well, how do you know you're safe? I might have a gun in my pocket. So, but I don't feel, I'm safe. Unless somebody jumps up in, of course, and do something to me, then I'm not safe at that very moment.
And it's interesting that you felt so much fear socially that you couldn't say what was true for you. That's interesting. And I promise you that the reason why is your past intruding into the present. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit more here in just a second. But first of all, where is there a danger in this room?
I would say my biggest danger is in my head. Because if you had said, do you have anxiety? Do you worry? Or do you feel safe from that? Then I could answer you.
Are you in danger when you have dangerous thoughts?
No.
No.
However, I think that my body thinks so. And that's where I need to learn to discuss, right?
Your thoughts are telling you to stab yourself in the throat with your pen. You got voices in your head telling you to stab yourself. You're not in any danger while those voices are telling you to stab yourself until you pick up the pen and start stabbing yourself in the throat with it. You are perfectly safe while the voices are going off in your head. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Not until you take the action, the behavior, are you in any danger.
To me, danger is a potential, though.
There's all kinds of potential.
But, I mean, when you're actually getting hurt, that's an event. That's not danger. That's already happening.
Uh-huh.
I mean, stay away from the pool is dangerous. Doesn't mean the pool is killing you right now. Then, but once you're in the pool, that's an event. It's no longer dangerous. It's happening.
Is there a danger right now?
That's a potential to me.
There is all kinds of potential, but who in this room is in danger right now?
There are dangerous things that can
There are dangerous things that are perfectly inert right now, are they not?
Yes.
Use your senses and see. There are many things in this room that could be weaponized, but nobody's weaponizing them. There are many things in this room that could blow up or catch on fire, that none of them, check them out right now. Use your senses. Is anything blowing up or catching on fire right now? No. So right now at this moment in time, you are perfectly 100% safe. 2 seconds from now, anything could happen. But right now in this moment, every one of you is perfectly 100% safe.
Could I ask a question relating to that?
Say again?
Could I ask a question
Absolutely.
relating to that? Does anyone else besides me think that if you think of all the things that could go wrong and you try to resolve them in your head, you can prevent that from happening. Or am I the only one that has thought that? With regard to behavior. No, okay, I'm the only one.
Yes, me.
I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Please repeat your question.
Well, let's say years ago, when I would worry about whether my daughter's actions would end her up in jail, somehow worrying and thinking through it, it was like I could prevent it from
Oh,
happening.
okay, I see what you're saying.
And it didn't. She has, but I know if I go back a decade ago, I spent an enormous amount of emotional energy trying to make my internal world safe, and I never could.
That's right. That's right. And that state of living is called hypervigilance. And it becomes increasingly compulsive of trying to smith the world into the shape that it doesn't scare you. And it turns out that, I don't know, maybe one of you guys have figured out how to do that, but the world just will not bend to my will. If any of you figure out how to do that, you let me know and we'll write that book and we'll become billionaires. I'll happily be your co-author. But I haven't figured out how to get the world to bend to my will. And that's what every one of my clients that have post-traumatic stress disorder, and the 12,000 that I've worked with, that's exactly what's going on, is that they are spinning their wheels of trying to control what is beyond their control. And they believe that unless they get that controlled, that their life is forfeit.
So that's really good because I just figured something out about myself. So when you asked, do we feel safe? I looked around and felt
Didn't
like,
ask that.
oh, well, cannot feel, are you safe?
Uh-huh.
Corrected. So I we're safe. Like but I immediately saw the Clorox bleach wipes up there and I felt like those have to be locked up so my kids don't get them. You know what I'm saying? So I realized that what I'm always trying to do, because that was exactly where my focus went to, is I'm always trying to be a step ahead to prevent something happening to other people, or to protect the kids in my home, or to protect the kids I've already raised, or to protect. I'm constantly in that mode, you know. So me, I want to get up and go put those away. That's weird, huh?
Here's something really
I'm just figuring it out.
Yes,
Like,
watch this. You didn't think about those Clorox wipes and to put them away. That was not a conscious thought. That was an intrusion.
okay.
You were intruded upon by painful past learning of the past. In the way that Larissa, I was telling you about her, the physician, when her daughter was 6 months old, she had that day worked a SIDS case earlier that day and did a 30-minute resuscitation and could not resuscitate the baby. And then had to go do the death notification with the family. Pretty horrible piece of business. After having worked to save the child, she's in tears, the family's in tears. Her next patient was a drug seeker, and then she, the switch of that, and next patient as soon as it was over. She went home that night. Forgot all about the experiences at work. Completely were gone. And she laid down, she put her daughter to bed, had the baby monitor, listening to her baby breathing comfortably, healthily. She's laying in bed and suddenly has a panic attack. As she started thinking about all the things that could go wrong and her daughter would die. And she got up and ran into her daughter's room, is watching her 6-month-old daughter breathing, sleeping peacefully and comfortably while she's crying and having a panic meltdown as a result of that intruding into her perception of that situation where there was nothing wrong. And that's what you just experienced. Does that make sense to you? That's what's going on with all of us, is that we are being intruded upon by our painful past learning.
So we all have post-traumatic stress.
Yes. All stress.
All of us.
All stress is post-traumatic stress. All stress is post-traumatic stress. What stress is, I'll cut to the chase on this. I usually take an hour to develop this material further out. But first of all, I want to just make sure, because people won't start the process of self-regulating, that this all is kind of resting on the fulcrum of how many of you in this room are perfectly 100% safe right now? Can I see a show of hands? Is there anybody not? You are. Everybody in this room is perfectly 100% safe. Because that is a game changer. What I just did is that I just hacked your system.
Great.
And I have gem-whacked with your software. And what's going to happen is, as you leave today, you're going to start asking yourself, am I really in danger in this situation? And notice what happens in your body when you ask yourself that question, am I really in danger right now? And the answer is no. What happens in your body?
Relaxes.
Okay.
There it is. Just that piece is huge.
That's good.
It's really good. It's really cool. That it just changes the world. That most of us walk around 99% of the time perceiving threat that is not real. But our autonomic nervous system is responding to the perceived threat as though it is a life or death situation. And it's just keeping us in a state of, this is a clinical term, by the way, jacked upness, constantly throughout our day. And when you start interrupting that with the, oh, wait a minute, no, there's nothing here that's really dangerous. And you can begin to regulate that autonomic nervous system. Anybody interested in learning how to do that? Well, if we want to take, as per our commitment, a 5-minute break and go to the restroom and take care of yourself, then we'll come back and we'll learn how to do that. So just wanted to confirm that every one of you in this room now is perfectly and totally 100% safe. Is that correct? Can I get a head nod?
Yes.
Welcome home. And what you just learned is that your painful past learning is intruding into your perceptual system, causing you to perceive threats which are not real dangers. That's a big deal. That's what all stress is caused by. It is a response to, it's a threat response, is what stress is. Does that make sense to you? And it is your body responding exactly the way an animal's body is supposed to respond when it is perceiving a threat. The problem is that 95% of the threats that I perceive are ego threats, or relational threats, or what you're thinking about. Still, autonomic nervous system doesn't know the difference. It still gives me a full-on fight or flight, life or death physiological response to just you looking at me. And where we're headed to is to begin to regulate that. People won't start the process of regulating their own autonomic nervous system until I can help get them to a place where they are safe. And that's why I start all of this, is that the place that safety exists for all of you in this room for the rest of your life is here now, not there then. Can you hear the difference in that? Right here. And for those of you who have a religious and spiritual bent, you know that the liturgies of all the religions talk about that. Right here. Not there then, right here. Is you are perfectly 100% safe. Now, how about this question? We live in the safest time in humankind's history, true or false?
I think in America.
In high and medium income countries. True or false?
I would say false.
Say again?
False.
Isn't that interesting? Because it is absolutely true. The World Health Organization actually did that study back in 2007, 2008. They looked at 15 different indices of personal safety, like natural disaster, famine, warfare, crime victim, disease, pestilence, and they found that those of us that live in the West and high and medium income countries are more insulated from one of those things happening to us than ever before in the history of humankind on this planet. We have built the safest world ever for our children. Congratulations, by the way. But we're scaring them to death. Because while we're the safest generation to ever exist on the planet, we are also the most afraid. How can that be true? How can we be safest and simultaneously the most afraid?
Because we're always preparing for that disaster.
Why would we do that? What do you suppose has stimulated that?
The media.
That's right. And the folks that kicked off all of this work with compassion fatigue was originally called vicarious traumatization. Laurie Pearl and Linda McCann back in the late 80s, they proved that you do not need to survive trauma to get traumatized. All you need to do is witness it. You see where that's going? Yes. That our grandparents had more traumatic lives than we did. They encountered more trauma in their lives than we do. We are exponentially more traumatized than our grandparents were because of how much trauma we have imbibed simply through our witnessing it. And let me show you how that works. How many in this room have ever been attacked in a parking garage? Have ever been attacked? Yeah. Anybody? Nobody in the room's raising their hand, so nobody's been attacked. How many of you, when you go in a parking garage, find yourself on guard and wary? Why?
Be aware of your surroundings.
So put your social scientist hat on with me for just a second and look at what's happened. Somewhere in your past, you have witnessed somebody being attacked in a parking garage. You saw it on CSI. You read it in a newspaper. You see on a television show or a movie a tableau of a parking garage. You know somebody's going to get got, don't you? It's just coming. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I just thought about kindergarten, stranger danger.
That's right.
So it's not even the media that has instilled that in us, and it also depends on your socioeconomic status as well, because don't go to school, don't get education, don't get a degree, so we're constantly from day one being taught to always protect, because if we don't do A, B, C, we're going to end up in a dangerous situation.
That's right. That's right. And Helen Keller taught us that life is dangerous. You know, anybody ever read that quote? I'm going to slice it up, but it was basically that life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all, and that security does not exist in nature. There's no such thing as security, and human beings do not experience it. And in the long run, it is no more dangerous to live boldly and exposed than it is to be scared and cloistered. That was Helen Keller. So you witnessed somebody being attacked in a parking garage. And what happened after you witnessed that? Whether it was somebody told you the story, or you saw it on television, or you read it in a newspaper. After you witnessed that experience, you took that learning with you. So the next time you're in that situation, you perceive threat in that situation. And the way that you've adapted to that perceived threat is you have developed a state of what we call hypervigilance. And what I'm going to challenge you to do before we're done here today is to replace the instinctual response, the animal response of hypervigilance with all of that threat you're perceiving out there in the world, to begin to intentionally confront it with relaxed vigilance. So you're stronger, smarter, and faster in situations of real danger, and you are not generating symptoms while you're doing that. This is what I teach law enforcement officers. I call the workshop Stronger, Faster, Smarter. I don't call it treatment. I teach it as performance enhancement. What happens inside of a body when that person is perceiving a threat?
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight's the behavior. What's happening physiologically?
Norepinephrine or
What are some of the physiological things?
Your heart's beating fast.
Heart rate goes up.
Tension.
Muscle tension.
breathing faster.
Your muscles tense when you do a manual labor or when you do a workout. What causes muscles to constrict and stay constricted?
So your breath, something in your breath, like forgetting to breathe sometimes.
Why would you not breathe fully?
Stress.
What causes muscles to constrict and stay constricted? One thing, that is the perception of threat. How often during the day do you have tight muscles? That's how much you're perceiving threat. For a lot of us in this room, it's pretty chronic, that there's a constant perception of threat. And until you know that, the way that you're having a physiological response, because it turns out you live in an animal. And your animal's responding exactly the way an animal is supposed to respond when it is perceiving threat. It is charging you up with energy to either attack the perceived threat or to get away from the perceived threat, except that you're hardly ever really in danger. So that's all wasted energy. We are the only animals on the planet that put ourselves intentionally in perceived threats and stay in those most of the day. We call it a career. And most of us are not ever regulating that autonomic nervous system functioning. We're just brute forcing and muscling our way through our day of confronting all of the things that scare us and driving ourselves through that and generating symptoms. Here's also the rub. What do you suppose happens to a brain in a human being who is perceiving a threat and not intentionally relaxing their body? What's it do?
Cuts off your reasoning. Cuts off your reasoning.
That's right. You lose your frontal lobe. You lose intelligence. You lose creativity. You lose humor. You lose gracefulness. You lose forethought and planning. You lose impulse control. All of those things begin to increasingly diminish until they're temporarily offline. And how many of you have experienced yourself doing really stupid stuff? Doing things which are not who you want to be or how you want to be? Well, that's because you have been so jacked up, you have temporarily lost all of your humanity. It all resides here, and when you are in that state of constantly being constricted, you are ever diminishing all of your capacities as a human being. And for those of you that have a faith base, you are losing your connection to your God temporarily. God hasn't left you, but you cannot get to and maintain your connection when you're in that state, because survival trumps everything. We're hardwired that way. That when you let that get up there to the certain level and don't regulate it, you will find yourself acting aggressively or avoidantly against your will. So, what do you suppose is the right thing to do when you perceive a threat but you're in no danger?
Breathe.
You're going to breathe it no matter what. Turns out you cannot not breathe.
Yeah. Go back to that. You're safe. You're safe. Bring it back.
It would be lovely.
Here, right?
It would be lovely
Doesn't
if that
happen, but-
worked. Yes.
That's the right answer.
It would be wonderful if I could just wake up in the morning and say, Eric, you know what? You're not really going to confront anything at all dangerous today. Chill. And that lasts for about 5 seconds until the next, I am bombarded by the next perceived threat. Here's the deal. This is what you need to know. Is that any time a human being from in utero, from childhood, any time a human being experiences painful learning, painful experience, any painful experience, emotionally or physically painful, what happens is that is encoded and stored in our memory. So the next time we encounter a situation that is in any way sensory similar to that learning, smells the same, sounds the same, feels the same, tastes the same, any way that it is similar to that painful learning experience, what happens is that painful learning experience comes forward, hijacks our perception, causes us to perceive threat in that situation where there is no danger. Just like a combat veteran that hears a loud noise and has exaggerated startle. It's not the loud noise that's causing the exaggerated startle. You get that? It is the loud noise is activating the combat experiences. The combat experiences are coming forward, hijacking the perceptual system of that combat veteran, causing them to perceive threat where there is no danger, producing an intense electrical chemical response inside of their body, enough to do that. That's what stress is. That's what stress is. It is painful past learning coming forward, hijacking our perceptual system, causing us to perceive threat here in this moment where there is no danger. How many painful learning experiences do you have in your past? And what that means is that most of us walk out our house in the morning into a jungle of constant encountering with situations that we perceive as threatening. And nobody's ever taught us about that. What do? Is we just muscle and grind and brute force or hack our way through the jungle. And here's the rub, is that all of that bypasses the thinking part of our brain. Our bodies are already reacted to the perceived threat before our brains even know that we're in the situation. And once we start having that jacked upness, we lose our brains. So thinking is not right action in that situation. What is right action? What's the right thing to do?
Regain control of the autonomic nervous
How would
system.
you regain control? And that's some interesting words that you got there, because to regain control, you have to
You're out of control.
surrender.
And that's kind of the irony,
It is an irony.
in that we want to be
The
in
way you regain control is that you got to let go. And that's the rub. That is the rub, is that I was doing a 2-day training. Oh, this was just beautiful. It was gorgeous. In Phoenix, I travel all over the world and do training, but just turned out that 3 weeks ago I got to do it in Phoenix, and I was coming to this part of the lecture, and there was a 6'4", 265, 270-pound African-American male sitting in the back of the room, and I got to this place, and he stood up in the room. He said, "Hypervigilance has kept me alive, MFer." He was a Vietnam veteran. And he stayed with it. He didn't leave. He was angry, though. And I said, I'm not selling anything here. If it doesn't work for you, just take what works and leave the rest. And we walked all the way through this, and he continued to participate, even though he was like this for most of the day. And it's a 2-day training. At the end of the second day, he waited until everybody else had filed out of the room. He sat over to the side, and he waited. And after everybody left, he got up and he walked directly toward me without slowing down. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I just relaxed. And he walked up to me and he put his arms around me, and he said, "Thank you for introducing me to me." That was the transformation. He had been in a state of hypervigilance since 1972, constant, generating those symptoms. And every time he was perceiving threat, he was in hypervigilance. And what I teach folks to do is to replace hypervigilance with relaxed vigilance, so that you are stronger, faster, and smarter, and you are comfortable inside of your body. Do you know what happens when you relax the muscles of your body when you are perceiving a threat? In 1 second. 1 second. You get to be inside of a comfortable body. 1 second is all it takes. 1 second of taking your attention off of all the stuff out here, putting it in your body, and releasing the muscles of your body. You immediately restore yourself back to comfort. Any of y'all interested in being comfortable inside of your skin for the rest of your days? Would that be valuable for you? Who knew? Who knew? I mean, why hasn't we taught everybody this? That all you got to do to be able to get that is to take your attention off of all the stuff out there and just put it in your body for 1 second. Notice the muscles that are tight and release it. That is all that is required. But when I do that, that's not the only thing I get. I get a comfortable body immediately. As I continue to practice it for a few seconds, my brain comes back online. I get back intelligence, I get back creativity, I get back all of those skills, and if I stay in the context of a perceived threat without relaxing my body, the energy goes up. Brain functioning goes down. And if I stay in that situation and I do not relax, then what's going to happen is I'm going to reach threshold presently where there's so much energy in my body, my brain can no longer control it. And if I continue to stay in that situation without relaxing, no amount of devotion to a set of principles will be able to stop me from acting out against those principles. Every single time I have done any behavior for which I am ashamed, every single time, I did that while I was in the context of a perceived threat and failed to relax the muscles of my body. And said yet even a little bit more differently, any time that any of you in this room ever violate your integrity, anytime you're snarky with the person that you've chosen to love, anytime you yell at your children, anytime you flip the bird off in traffic, or anytime that you take shortcuts at work, every single one of those violations of your integrity are a fight or flight behavior. They are aggression or avoidance every single time. And as you teach people to be in relaxed muscle bodies, not only are they comfortable inside of their skin, not only do they regain creativity and intelligence and grace, but they find themselves being able to walk all the way through their day, staying true to their principles, where the only way they could do that before was by brute force. And you can't sustain that. It's unsustainable. The only way to stay on the beam of your integrity is you got to walk into those high demand situations and you got to unplug that compulsivity, that desire, this thing, that jacked up. You got to stop yourself from energizing and doing something. And then when you do that, your neocortex comes back online. Now I got an adult. Viktor Frankl has a quote that I just love, and this is something for you to take to work with your children and for you for the rest of your lives. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. What happens to people who are jacked up and don't regulate is that collapses. There's stimulus, it's paired with reactivity. Stimulus, reactivity, stimulus, reactivity, stimulus, reactivity. And what we're going to do is take the next 20 minutes or so and learn how to open up that space so we can start to have stimulus. And now, with the relaxed body and a thinking mind, I can say, who and how do I want to be when this is happening? I was 30 years old before I figured out I didn't have to fight every time I was disrespected. I didn't know that every single time somebody said something or did something disrespectful for me, it created such arousal that I was ready to physically be in an altercation. Space collapsed. It's from my development. Does that make sense to you? That was what I learned all the way through my development. And I'm really grateful. I mean, my nose has been broken 7 times. I'm grateful that I don't have to do that anymore. 55. It's too old to be fighting when somebody says words to me. I mean, come on. Right? It's just dumb. But it's where I came from. It was the contamination of my development. And here's the sweet piece, and then we'll do skills development and get out of here. I don't know if any of you have read anything about attachment, but secure attachment is magical. It's what calms the behaviors. It's what helps people to grow into who they want to become and to have horrible early life experiences and then shift into having a great life. Secure attachment is that process. And here's what's lovely, is that secure attachment only requires 2 things. One is a relaxed body caregiver. Your children need to feel you in a relaxed body. They need to sense that. That's not pretending to be calm while inside you're or like this. It is a completely felt sense released muscle body, and attuned. That's what produces secure attachment. And for those of you who have traumatized and anxious children, watch what happens as you engage with them in a relaxed muscle body. You ground the charge out of them. It's a pretty elegant and beautiful thing, because they're little intuitive beings. They are taking their read from what physiological shape that I'm in. And when I'm jacked up, then all the people around me are jacked up. And when I'm relaxed, what happens when you're around somebody who's relaxed? What happens when you're around somebody who's anxious?
Makes it worse.
There it is. There it is. We're herd animals. That's what herd animals do. That when there's a threat, the whole herd is activated. When one gets relaxed, then it produces the same response in others. And it's the most important thing that I do as a caregiver, is to interact with the people that I'm working with so that they feel me in a relaxed body. It's the most important thing that I do as a professional caregiver. And resulting from that, I get resilience. That's how you work for 35 years in a career and not be sick as a result of that. Is by practicing that skill. And it's really simple. It's not easy. So, any questions right now? It was a lot of information that I just threw out. I'm about to transition into helping you to develop some skills to be able to do that, but I just want to see if anybody has any questions. That may be the fastest I've ever done that information.
You said it requires a relaxed body
And attunement.
and attunement, right? I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Relaxed body and attunement.
In the case of chronic threat from children and their big activities,
Their behaviors.
their behaviors,
That a parent is perceiving the threat.
cussing, throwing things, hitting things, pick up a knife, that. If that is every day, those are real dangers. How do we do that?
Just had a discussion a few minutes ago on break around that. And I worked a lot with law enforcement and have been consulted by the DOJ, and I do Department of Justice and do trainings all over the country with law enforcement officers. I've also worked a lot with domestic violence survivors. Folks who are in real danger and choose to put themselves consistently in real danger. And I teach them the skill as a second gear is to replace the instinctual response of hypervigilance with an intentional response of relaxed vigilance. Keep situational awareness, keep your head on a swivel, be aware, but do that in a relaxed body so you're stronger, faster, and smarter. You actually are able to have more stamina, you are more agile, better able to protect yourself, and you're a whole lot smarter at being able to think of language to be able to use to manage that previous to it turning into escalation. Which you just can't do if you're jacked up, because if you're jacked up, what's happening is that you are facilitating the aggressive behavior. Not saying that you're causing it, but you're not depotentiating it. The best thing you can do is that an angry child feels you in a relaxed body. That it's hard to stay angry when you are in the context of somebody who is in a relaxed muscle body. It burns itself out pretty quickly. But if the escalation cranks up, then it turns into where the child has lost neocortical functioning, and that now that they are full on in a survival response. They are bad kids. Bodies acting differently. They don't have a choice at that point. Their space has collapsed. Do you get that? And that's the wrong time to try to do teachable moments. But you want to teach them this and to show them that their space is collapsing and helping them to regulate their autonomic nervous system. And it's almost impossible to help other people regulate their autonomic nervous system while yours is not. So you got to practice a little while. Couple weeks. A couple weeks, you'll develop mastery at this. For those of you that want to. I can't understand why you wouldn't, but some people just don't. The only people that turn this into discipline are the ones that suffered enough from not doing it. That's why I love working with trauma survivors. Teach everybody this, and a lot of people say, yeah, what else you got? I don't think I have anything else. It's how you can be comfortable inside your skin for the rest of your life, how you can maximize neocortical functioning, and how you can be true to yourself. I don't know what else to give you. But it involves you doing some stuff that is unfamiliar. And I'd like to transition into that. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm hoping at the beginning that it's okay to go through the motions even though you're not feeling
Say
it.
again?
I said I hope at the beginning it's okay to go through the motions of making your body cooperate even though you're not feeling it. Because I've been able to do that. And when my child is in a meltdown, I relax my body, I take deep breaths, and I talk quietly, and I look very relaxed, but I'm having an anxiety attack inside because I'm so scared.
And they feel that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, so that's where I'm at right now. I've got my body looking like it's relaxed, but I'm afraid of what if she's about to do something. And so I hope the beginning stages is okay to do that at first.
It is.
And at some point my heart
But let's
stops.
get you all the way to the finish line.
Yeah.
I mean, you're on the 10-yard line. Let's get all the way over let's make a goal. But I do want to say this. I've been practicing this for 20 years, and I have never, ever once found my body relaxed. I do 150, 200, 300 times a day of checking in, and it's always tight. Every single time I come to awareness of my body, it's tight. So I am always failing. But what I'm doing is catching myself more and more quickly, and I'm failing my way to success. That's what it looks like, is that you're going to constantly fail at this. Your body is always going to be tight when you're not paying attention to it. Most of us in this room. And you just become aware of it, and you release it. There it is. It's that simple. The fancy $10 word for that capacity is called interoception. And that means to have a felt sense, real-time awareness of what's going on with your physical self. Most of us stay up in our heads all day long. And what self-regulation requires is that we take our attention out of our head and put it in our bodies. And watch how cool this is. You don't even have to relax. Put your attention right now on a tight muscle in your body and hold your attention on that muscle and notice what happens. What happens with the muscle?
Relax.
It relaxes. There it is. There it is. It's that simple. It's just taking your attention out of your head and putting it in your body. That's how you do it. Now, to demonstrate that, I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid of every one of you in this room. This is the way I teach it to my clients. I tell my clients I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of all of you. Why do you suppose that I'm afraid of? Why do I perceive you as a threat?
What we might think of you?
Am I in danger because of what you think of me?
No.
Zero. So why would I perceive your judgment of me as a threat? This is important. This is take home.
Past?
Yes,
Training?
always. Always. The reason why a human being perceives the threat where there is no danger is because of the intrusion of painful past learning. And I'll spend a lot of time in front of audiences. You think I've ever gotten a bad evaluation? Thousands. How many times do you think I see this? I'm a professional musician. How many times I screw up songs? Every time I play. I have lots and lots and lots of painful learning experiences in front of other people who are judging on me. And my autonomic nervous system is acting exactly the way an autonomic nervous system is supposed to act. My sympathetic nervous system wants me to kill you or run away from you. But Eric, the owner of that animal, the digital system that is grafted on top of the meat, Eric wants something different than my animal. Do you get that? My animal is wanting to either run away or attack aggressively because you're judging on me. That's what it knows. That's all an animal knows how to do. Eric wants to build a relationship with you, wants to connect with you, wants to love you, and teach you some ways to do this work better and not have to suffer. And what I did for, 20 years of my career was I took that animal and I brute forced him. I just wrestled him through the day. And I forced him to confront the things that he was afraid of. And spurred and beat and muscled. And when I do my day that way, what shape am I in at the end of the day? I'm shot out completely. I lived that way for 20 years, of where I got done with a day's work and I had to go home and lay down and couldn't talk to anybody. Today, I'm doing it a little bit differently. Today, I'm looking at, Steve. I'm looking at Steve right now, and my attention is totally on Steve. I'm looking at his face and his countenance. Right now, he has no idea that my attention is not on him, it's on my own body. And I'm noticing the muscles in my body that are tight and constricted. I'm releasing the tension in those muscles, and then my attention is right back out to him. Bloop, bloop. Bloop, bloop. And what I just did was I reset my autonomic nervous system. It was going over here. It was starting to get into the red zone of where it's producing symptoms, where I'm starting to get jacked up. And what I did was I just moved it back over here into the comfort zone. And then I go on and I talk about the next thing. And 2 or 3 or 6 minutes later, I look at Sue. My attention is totally focused on Sue right now. And then I take my attention off of her, and I put my attention back in my body, and I discover it being all nice and relaxed and comfortable, right? 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 It's tightened right back up. Why is it tightened back up? Why am I tightened back up? After I already released with Steve.
It's a new possible danger.
And that's a new threat.
What's not changed?
Your history hasn't changed.
And my history
You
hasn't
just live in a
changed. I
different-
still have all that learning history. There's still cameras in this room. There's still you guys. It's all of that perceived threat from all that stuff is still intruding. And my body is continuing to act in the way an animal is supposed to act. Is that it is energizing me to get ready to save myself.
So what's the difference in what you're doing and what, I'm sorry, the young lady at the end said that she was doing when she's smiling, but still inside she's still having all of this going on? I don't see a difference.
She is calming herself by brute force. Do you understand that? She is muscling herself into relaxation. What I'm doing differently is I'm releasing.
Okay. Makes sense.
I'm completely releasing all of the tension of all the muscles in my body. She is policing herself and holding herself very calm and steady to create an outward facade. What I'm doing is I'm putting my attention on the inside.
Okay.
And I'm completely releasing all of those muscles. So, there it is. I'm going to ask you to try that yourself right now. So, let me do one quick thing here. There's a difference between self-regulation and relaxation. All the relaxation stuff, breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness, all of that technology we have out there to get relaxed. All of that technology requires that we take a break from whatever's going on in our lives and go do something to get relaxed. We have to dissociate from the activities of daily living to get relaxed. Where self-regulation is the ability to do minimal relaxation, just enough to interrupt that threat response system while being fully engaged in the activities of daily living. So it's rapid. It's 1 or 2 seconds is all it takes. And doing that while fully still engaged in everything I'm doing, work, driving, closeness with somebody I love, being able to continue to come back and developing that engagement with the world, engagement with the world, engagement with the world, and then 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes later, come back, check in on my body. It's always tight because I'm always afraid, and releasing it. And when you get that up to about 200 times a day, your stress symptoms fall off the table. You don't have stress symptoms anymore.
So at the end of the day, you're not exhausted.
You're not exhausted. You still got enough energy to have life after work. You still
So
have.
it's not failure that you keep finding yourself afraid, but just awareness of what you have to do so that you don't peak, you catch it quick.
The problem is not the activation. That activation of what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is the energizing system. That's where joy comes from. That's where excitement. That's where passion. That's where energy comes from. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not built to stay on. That's the problem. That's the rub. Most of us are going through our day staying up there in that sympathetic nervous system, letting it just stay dominant. And what self-regulation is doing is that it's constantly interrupting that dominance. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. You are releasing the muscles of your body. Boom, you're dropping back over onto the side of comfort. And then what happens in 30 seconds or 2 minutes, the energy starts cranking up because you're still in the situation where you're perceiving threat. So and you catch it again and you drop it back down. You catch it again and you drop it back down. That's what self-regulation looks like. And as I said, most people are not willing to develop the discipline to master that skill. Only people that have suffered enough yet are the ones that are willing to do it. My question to you is, have you suffered enough yet? Or do you need some more? If you need some more, go get it. I just want to make sure you know how to not have it anymore when you are ready to put the effort and energy into that discipline. I want to make sure you walk out of here today knowing how to be able to achieve that state. So in the next 15 minutes, every one of you are going to walk out of this morning knowing how to never experience stress again for the rest of your life.
Wow. Where's my check?
I will refund your money if that's not true.
So is it good to have some, I know for me, one of the things that I have to, I say things to myself, when I'm getting to that moment and there's a child reacting in a way that maybe I don't understand or didn't experience with my 3 children that I raised, I kind of remind myself, I think sometimes we want to take it personal or it's about us, and I have to remind myself, okay, this is not about me. Just take a step back, because it always comes on as it's a personal thing, and then like you said, it goes back to the way we were wired or the way we were brought up, and you want to whatever your reaction you want to do, but I just have to remind myself it's not about me. Is that healthy or?
Let me just cut to the chase and say no.
Okay.
And here's why. Let me explain that to you. Because what's happening is while you're jacked up, you are losing the part of your brain that is able to make cogent argument. Mm-hmm. And what you're now doing is that you're trying to use digital to control analog.
Okay.
So what I would ask that you do is go to your body first.
Oh, and not, okay.
Yes, and then come back up here.
Got it.
Where you're not having that compulsion anymore, and it doesn't have to be brute force that you get your body relaxed.
Isn't that pretty typical though? Or is it just a girl thing? You just go to your mind first?
That's
to
what everybody. That's what we all
analyze
do.
it. I'm gonna figure. Okay,
Always.
that's good. That's good. Okay.
Go to your.
That's
It's
what I've been doing
here
wrong.
first, so that you get a fully functioning brain,
Right.
and that you're graceful, and that you
I'm
use.
sorry, honey. 29 years of marriage. I'm gonna go here first and not here. This is all good.
And you start seeing that all of the things that you've ever done to hurt anybody else is not you, it's your animal. I mean, you're still responsible for all your behaviors, but you did that in desperation, not intention. You were in a state of desperation. You were so afraid you acted out aggressively or avoidantly, not intentionally. And that's what that book's about, is how to live an intentional life and heal trauma by doing it, by relaxing, softening. You cannot have stress in a relaxed muscle body. Do you get that? You understand that? It's physiologically impossible to have stress while the muscles in your body are relaxed. That takes a little bit of a while to fully digest. No matter what's going on out there, if you stay in a relaxed muscle body, you cannot have stress. No matter what.
I want to believe that. It's just that
I want you to.
I
Are you willing to practice it?
Oh, absolutely. But like my anxiety, which is like kind of right here, desperately wants that.
So let me ask
I don't know
you.
how to get there.
Well, let's start with this. Who is it that is squeezing those muscles in your stomach?
My stomach behaves independently. So, yeah.
Then we need to get you exercised and get those demons out of you that are controlling the muscles in your
Some of it
abdomen.
is learned. Would you say like it goes back to the way that you were raised? Because I'm now processing what we're learning here today and thinking about my 3 raised children who my 27-year-old deals with anxiety. And I'm thinking I was 21 when I was pregnant with her, and I'm pretty sure I didn't have a relaxed body that she was in the entire pregnancy. Do you know what I'm saying? And so then I've now created that kind of, so I'm like, can we do a family session? Because I mean, it really goes back. I'm thinking you probably have that learned experience from your mom, which is carried on to you.
Oh, totally.
So we're all just like this vicious cycle.
My brother-in-law told my sister once, "Why is your whole family wired tight?" So I absolutely think it can be generational.
And watch
So
this.
now we're gonna
Watch
unwire.
this. Watch this.
Okay.
As I confront the perceived threats in my life in a relaxed muscle body, not only am I healing my life and all the trauma in my life, I am healing my mother's life. I am healing my grandmother's life. I am healing it all the way back to the very beginning, because what I am doing is I am no longer a transmitter of intergenerational traumatic stress. Stops here with me. And that's precious. That's soulful. Is that I now know how to not spew on the world what has been a legacy of pain throughout my family. All of my ancestry is pretty severely traumatized. And that's sweet. So, how many of you in the room right now? So here's what self-regulation is. It is the ability to take your attention out of your head and for 1 or 2 seconds to scan your body, notice the muscles that are constricted, and release those constricted muscles. And doing that in 2 or 3 seconds. How many of you in this sitting around this table right now can get your body to a state of comfort with that intention? Can release the muscles and that you are inside of a comfortable body? How many of you can do it? Can I see your hands? So, everybody?
Try.
Well, with the positive mindset, we're going to try.
So watch this. If you all can do it, you just did it right then. You can do that right now. You can get your body to a state of comfort right now. Yes? So you guys all now know how to never experience stress again for the rest of your life.
With practice.
Word.
Yeah.
You got it. But what nobody's ever done, nobody's ever coached you to leave this experience today and go confront all the perceived threats of your life in this state. That's all it is to it. That's it. That's adult development. That's something that we all need to learn, because all the goodies of adulthood are on the other side of our ability to do that. This isn't treatment. This isn't psychobabble. This is what it means to mature as a human being, is the ability to be inside of a comfortable body, to have maximal brain functioning, and to be able to be intentional instead of reactive when we're confronting situations that scare us. Does that make sense? So I've got a couple of other techniques that I'm willing to teach you, but you guys already got it. Let me show you a couple of other different ways to do it that you can practice. Now, once again, I do not want anybody to buy this. I don't expect you to buy this. I don't expect you to drink the Kool-Aid. But what I will not truck is contempt prior to investigation. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to practice what you learn here in your life. And if every single time you are able to get the muscles in your body relaxed, that you are comfortable inside of your body, that you are able to think the way you want to think, and you're able to act the way you want to act. If that happens every single time that you do it, then maybe you want to keep doing it. And then maybe you want to teach the people that you love how to do it too, so that they can join you in being able to be comfortable and intentional. That's all I'm asking you to do, is to do the experiment. And if it works every single time, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, don't do it. But you'll find every time you get the muscles in your body relaxed, you're comfortable in your body. It's how do you self-regulate? Same way you get to Carnegie Hall. You practice. So, how many of you know the difference? I'll get you out of here in the next 7 minutes. How many of you know the difference between your muscular and skeletal system? What's the difference between a muscular and a skeletal system?
Skeletal is hard and muscles can be soft.
There it is. There it is. Did you know? I asked that question to docs, and they look at me like this. And they conceptually understand everything there is to know about both of those systems, and they can treat it. But they don't have a felt sense of the difference. Do you get that? That they live in their heads all day long. They're strategic. That's how they got to the top of the food chain. They're able to think 3 or 4 moves ahead of everything. And that's what they do, is they stay here. They do not have that interoceptive capacity. They got to learn it. And docs hate learning new things because they think they know everything. It's really a challenge for them. And it's especially painful for them to have a mental health professional teach them something new.
I just had a revelation. That's the problem with the system. And the people who are running the system is because they're right here and they're trying to stay ahead of everybody, and that's why they're not able to think clearly when they're in a situation.
It is trauma saturation. As I said earlier, can you backfill what I said earlier to you when I said that all stress is post-traumatic stress? All stress is painful past learning that is coming forward in this moment, causing us to perceive threat where there's no danger. All stress is post-traumatic stress. So, do you believe it true that your skeletal system can support all your weight? That's what it's there for. That it does a perfect job of holding your body. So you don't need to have any muscles tight to be able to be perfectly supported, whether you're standing or whether you're sitting. Now, occasionally you need to tighten up one for a second to readjust yourself, but you don't need any constricted muscles to be able to be perfectly supported and comfortable inside of your body. So what I'm going to ask you to do for the next 5 seconds is I'm going to ask you to give over to your skeletal system, the support of your body. So you're going to release your muscular system. You can thank it for all of its fine work that it's done for you for all these years, and then you can let it retire from supporting your weight while you give over to your skeletal system. So I want you to just trust the chair. It turns out for the past 2 hours it hasn't fallen. It's probably not going to break through for you in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So putting your weight on your sit bones and lining your spine up, your clavicle, your shoulders, everything. Those bones will hold everything. And I'm going to ask you to take the next 5 seconds and completely release all the muscles in your body while you transfer over to your skeletal system the support. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How stressed out are you right now? How stressed out are you? How stressed out are you, Steve? Oh, look! It worked.
But I felt that jump where you singled me out.
And you have already, several of you around the table have already caught yourself tightening right back up again. And watch, you can take your attention out of your head, put it back in your body, and you can release again, can't you? Boop, 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 boop. You can do that process. I'm really excited for all of you. I just get a real sense of soulfulness and excitement when I get to kind of be here at the beginning of somebody getting to spend the rest of their life comfortable and to be able to love the way they want to love instead of being a victim of fear. It's one of the most beautiful things that I get to do. And here's what I say to my clients. I wonder what would happen if you decided to leave this meeting and go confront every single perceived threat in your life in that physical state that you're in right now. Me either. Would you be willing to try? And send me an email over the next week or two to report what was different in the time or the times that you were able to get and keep the muscles in your body relaxed versus the time or the times that you didn't or you just forgot. Would you be willing to send me an email on that? Because I'd love to hear.
Do you take emails from jail?
I actually go to jail on Tuesday nights. Take a meeting in there.
If I'm going to confront these.
So I may see you there. So one more technique I want to show you and then get you out of here as promised. And this is, for 15 years I taught that this was the only way to do self-regulation. It is not the only way. There is only one right way to do self-regulation. That's your way. Any way you are catching any muscle in your body tight and releasing it, any muscle, and you consistently do that, what's going to happen over the next 4 days or 5 days or 10 days is that you're going to learn your body better and better and better and better, and you're not going to be able to tolerate it staying in that state of constriction for nearly as long as you have, so that the more you do this, the better you become aware of your body, so it facilitates itself. Start with whatever you start with. If it's a neck muscle, if it's a foot muscle, if it's a butt muscle, whatever you're aware of. But if you're going to start that process and you want to get the most out of it, let me show you the group of muscles to focus on where you can get the most benefit. I'm going to ask you to hold your hands out, palms up. And I'm going to ask you to, just for a second, put your hands under your butt and feel the two bones that you're sitting on. Those are called the ischial tuberosities, your sit bones. Can you feel those two bones there? Touch those solidly and then take your hands out. Now touch here. These are called the iliac crest. These bones right here. The hip bones, pelvic bones, and then release. Now what you've just done is you've made a touch memory in your body for 4 points, haven't you? You should have a felt sense of those 4 points right now. Not a digital, not in your head, but you can actually go find those 4 geographical points in your body with a felt sense. You feel them? Now I'm going to ask that you imagine connecting all 4 of these points with a straight line. So there's a straight line across the front here. There's a straight diagonal line down the side. There's a straight flat line across the bottom, and a straight diagonal line back up the other side. When you connect all 4 of those points, what you just did is that you made a 2-dimensional plane in your body that sets at about a 45-degree angle like that, right? Whether you're sitting or whether you're standing. That plane cuts across all the muscles in your pelvis. What I'm going to ask you to do for the next 20 seconds is I'm going to ask you to allow that square to expand, so that the space in the middle of that square is completely released. There are no muscles that are clenched anywhere in this whole area of your body. In that whole pelvic area, just completely soften all of those muscles for 20 seconds. Getting your breath down into that area of your body, completely releasing it. And for the last 10 seconds, focus on the muscles that are in the very center of that square, your core muscles, and opening and releasing those muscles. Congratulations. Your parasympathetic nervous system is now dominant. It is physiologically impossible to experience stress when you have relaxed pelvic muscles. I've taught that to 400,000 people, and I've gotten 400,000 looks like I'm getting from you guys right now. I'm going to ask you to do it one more time, to just release the muscles in your pelvis. And report to me what you notice happening in your body while you are completely releasing those muscles. What's happening in your body?
Everything relaxes.
Say that again.
Everything relaxes.
Everything else relaxes.
You feel
That's
lighter.
huh?
You feel lighter.
That's why I suggest folks start with those muscles, because those are the only muscles in the human body that when you release them, you get a total systemic relaxation. And there's a whole big physiological process that goes along with that. It has to do with the vagus nerve, which I just don't have time to go into right now. But it is physiological, is that when you release the muscles of your pelvis, and you keep those released, no matter what's going on out there, you cannot have a stress response. You cannot have elevated heart rate. Well, to get elevated heart rate, you got to squeeze the muscles of your pelvis. You notice 100% of the time leaving this training, if you're stressed, I promise you those muscles are constricted 100% of the time. And when you release them, you get a total. Check it out. Go ahead and do it again right now and see if that does not immediately return you to comfort in your body. You release the pelvis, do you not immediately have comfort in your skin? So what I'm going to ask you to begin to practice is get that up to 200 times a day. And what you just learned, that it is not that stuff out there. Because when you believe it's that stuff out there, you are a victim. Do you understand that? And what you just learned, it is not the stuff out there, but it's what's going on inside of your body while you're encountering the stuff out there. And when you manage what you have power and control over, your space between stimulus and response widens back out, and you have the ability to make choice. Questions, comments?
What was the name of that nerve? Vagus nerve?
Vagus nerve, dorsal vagal. Squeeze on the dorsal vagal, you activate sympathetic nervous system. Take the clench off the dorsal vagal, you activate parasympathetic. It's pretty cool, that. Who knew that God or evolution gave us an internal rheostat? I love that. I love that we have the ability to adjust ourselves to where we don't have to be the victims of things external. And that's what I try to do to everybody, is to shift from an external locus of control, and that's what we've done in the past 2 hours, to now an internal locus of control. Questions, comments? Yeah.
Just a comment. Every time you say you physically can't have a stress. You physically can't have a stress response when you're relaxed. I keep thinking of drivers who drive under the influence, and those stories where they are much higher success that they're not going to get hurt in a car wreck because their body is relaxed than the rest of us who know it's coming, and we're very cerebral about it, and we're trying to visualize it and get hurt.
What causes traumatic stress is not trauma. What causes traumatic stress is the encoding of the experience with terror. That's what produces all of the symptoms of PTSD, is you got to encode with terror. And I've worked with 12,000 trauma survivors in my career. I have never yet done any treatment with somebody who was in a motor vehicle accident while driving while intoxicated. They don't end up with PTSD because they central nervous system depressant. They don't ever have the terror encoded with the accident to be able to get for that to turn into trauma.
So that's along the lines of how it's the body that remembers it, right?
150 years, we've been teaching folks that it is the mind that produces the feelings. And that is only true if you are not in your threat response system. If you are in your threat response system, it is the dog that is wagging everything else. And we got to help folks to get out of their threat response system. And to get out of your threat response system, you have to go to your body, not your mind. Who knew? So I have a commitment to get you guys out of here. I'm happy to stay and answer any questions, but I don't want to keep you guys. I really appreciate you being willing to participate in this. And my hope is that there'll be some footage that'll be able to be used for other adoptive care folks. That's my hope.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's very good. Thanks.
This is great.